Lift & Co. Expo 2022, and I thought it very appropriate that we sit down and chat with Miss Michaela. She has a history with High Canada. So back in the day when these expos first started up, Lift, Cannabis, Grow Up, and we would set up, because we didn't really know where the industry was going at the time. Michaela has joined us on the High Canada team a few times. She was a part of the Shatterizer team a few times. I mean, we've been around the block a few times.
Definitely, definitely around a lot of expo blocks together, but I would not be where I am without working with High Canada Magazine, the networking, all the fun social events. You guys are everywhere, and very plugged into the know in the industry.
That's right. So without further ado, Miss Michaela. So Michaela, tell us what you're doing now in the cannabis space just like 5 years later.
Yes, for sure. So I am an independent business consultant. I'm the principal of my company, MF Cannabis Consulting. For the past few years, I've been working with established licensed producers with, brokering long-term agreements or partnerships, and that's really extended now to working with brands or new entrants that want to start in a cannabis company but not sure how to go about it. I help them look at the business models of various options besides becoming a vertically integrated operator. So what does a sublease look like on paper? What does a private label look like on paper? We have 850 plus licensed producers, many of them going insolvent or trying to, sell off their assets. So divestiture options, but how to actualize the infrastructure of the cannabis industry that already exists and allowing smaller businesses that want to get started today. They don't need to wait 3 years building a facility from scratch. They can either take part with a partnership or purchase a facility that's ready to go.
Absolutely. And you do a lot of work globally as well?
Yes. So a lot of the global work is, again, with established licensed producers for supply procurement to co-manufacturing, but a lot of that is extended to different companies outside of different companies in different parts of the world are coming to Canada to launch a cannabis product, kind of as a pilot or a test for their industry once it opens up. So, for example, I was working with an animal feed company, a multinational company whose head offices were in Australia, and they wanted to start a flower brand here in Canada to really understand the costs or expectations are for a flower brand, so that whenever the Australian market opens up, they'll have a business model that they know works or what doesn't. So internationally, there's not many opportunities besides supply or export agreements, but that is changing as the markets are evolving, and there's definitely opportunities for more B2B partnerships and collaboration, private labeling, subleasing, joint ventures. So I help facilitate all of that with producers all over the world.
And so far in the last few years, what has been like the most exciting thing that you've partnered or introduced or anything along those lines?
So, we're definitely in the part of the industry right now where, cannabis is still very early, but in terms of participation from the CPG, tobacco, pharmaceutical industries, they've really been sitting on the sidelines figuring out the best way to penetrate or integrate themselves in the market. And this is actually happening right now, which is really exciting because I am meeting with public companies, multinational companies, tobacco companies that are figuring out the best and smartest investment for their companies in cannabis. So I think now is a very exciting time and the most exciting opportunities, because I can't say the name of some of the tobacco companies that I've talked to or will be talking to, but right now the companies with the big investments with already tons of success in their own CPG categories are wanting to invest in cannabis, which is a huge boost for our industry, with all of our licensed producers looking for additional revenue opportunities or partnership opportunities. So this is a time where the outside world is figuring out how can we get started and how can we get involved in this industry, and it's starting to happen right now.
So that's exciting. And what is the most fun country that you get to go to do business? Because you do a lot of, I love your little excursions.
Yeah, so I go to Mexico quite often. Unfortunately, with Mexican cannabis, there are just so many delays with cannabis legislation down there. There's been different priorities. There was an election recently, a re-election. So Mexico unfortunately isn't a country that's moving forward in cannabis as much as I would love them to, because it's a great country with lots of potential. But I'd say one of the most fun countries, and one I'll be going to this summer, is Germany. And that's really because Germany's probably the next country,
They're
or the
on the
closest
forefront.
one
Absolutely.
to legalization. I think it's a lot slower than what a lot of people will think. The draft law is going to come out 2023, but actual enactment of the law when a user can go to a store or pharmacy to pick up cannabis, I don't think that will happen for at least another year and a half. But right now those conversations are happening. The brand recognition's getting there, and I'm going to Germany to see what's going on and how I can help.
Do you know anything about with France?
So France has a pilot medical trial right now, and it's an interesting program because they're only using donated cannabis.
Correct.
And a lot
And
of
hasn't it expired? Has the trial not expired already?
I think it actually might have just started last year, and I think it's a 2-year pilot project. So I'm not sure what part they are in it. These pilot medical trials, we're also seeing them happen in Denmark, Luxembourg. But the problem, we're seeing right now, at least for international opportunities, is all the cannabis that France is using is donated. So Aurora, I think, was one of the countries that donated their medical cannabis for the project. So it's not a great opportunity for Canadian producers looking for export potential, but these countries that are doing these pilot medical trials is really the foray into medical cannabis.
At least they're getting into it.
So developing those relationships is definitely going to be helpful. I think France is probably one of the more conservative countries when it comes to cannabis legislation, but also look at the French community. I went to school in Quebec. I know a lot of French people. They're huge hash consumers, and I think there's really interesting market segments between different cultures. And France, it's going to take a while before the rec market to build up, but I really think France is going to be quite a hub for the concentrates
I think so
market.
too. It's just, like you said, but at least they're having the discussions and they're open to the idea of and the research and the information that's coming through. Aside from Mexico, what is the most restrictive, don't really want to even have discussions about it that you know of? That's just really not super interested in having a talk.
I don't even know if it's more so a country, but in different areas in the world, ironically, Asia has probably the most prohibitive cannabis laws, even though cannabis is originally cultivated from that part of the world. In archaeological context, we found some of ancient cultures in China, India, Sri Lanka use cannabis for medicinal, industrial purposes. So hopefully that stigma that has been introduced back into that area does go away. But I'd say a lot of Asian countries are quite prohibitive about it. China is the largest producer of hemp, but in terms of cannabis, there could be really severe penalties for its use or, cultivation. So I'd say in terms of areas, we're hoping to see more developments from Asia. Thailand has done a great job with their medical cannabis program. It is limited to low THC cultivars, but Malaysia is coming around board, and I really think that this will create more of a domino effect, just like Germany has for Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see most of the globe is quickly lighting up, and it's becoming
it's happening. Over 60 countries have legalized medical cannabis in some form, and just like in Canada, medical cannabis was the first step towards rec cannabis. So once we understand the associated risks, what controlled distribution looks like, and how it would work in those specific countries and legislations, recreational cannabis is going to take hold, but it's going to be a slow process, and just investors or companies need to know that this is a long-term game.
Absolutely. You're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. I've always have been, just like you, Tanny.
Right? Hey, not going anywhere. You got to keep going. So, what can we expect to see from you or hear about you in the next, year or whatever? Any new?
So, in terms of me, I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more work with European companies or international companies, just like I mentioned, them experimenting in the cannabis industry here in Canada.
And you're going to go to Germany?
I'm going to be going to Germany to see what other investments Canadians can do abroad. And I'm trying to figure if that's not going to be exports of supply? Is that human resources? Are we going to have more joint ventures like these majority stakes between a Canadian producer and the Netherlands or Germany? So what else can we do to contribute to the global market? Because we're the first ones to do it.
That's right.
Of course, we've made some mistakes, but we're the first ones to do it, and there's a lot of value you can provide the world. So for the next year or so, you can count on me being at more cannabis expos and events in different countries, and really getting the smaller companies, legacy companies, to get started in the cannabis industry in the best way possible.
Well, I look forward to seeing everything that you'll be up
Yes,
to.
of course.
And
I'll
I
keep
hope
you
one of
updated.
these days coming, I'll be joining you on one of these fun excursions to
You better.
just hang around
You
and
better. And bring this friend along, please,
right,
too. You know?
right. So thank you, Michaela. We love you, and I can't wait to see where you go in the world of cannabis, because she's only going up, folks. So if you don't know this young woman, you better, because you will at some point. So
Appreciate
thank you
that.
for coming. And
Thank you so much. I love you guys.
Thank you.
Tons. Thank you.